Okay, so welcome to a Infinite Ammo Syndicate trailer analysis for the Evil Within's announcement trailer and also extended gameplay trailer. We are about to start this in about 3, 2, 1, and now. Also, Brendan, don't worry, you just got back in time.
A little fast jump scare.
I hope that happens in the game.
For 3 years since Beacon happened.
It seems like it does, by the way, in the extended gameplay trailer. So
You didn't find what you were looking for because
Didn't
Someone compare that scene to one of the scenes in Resident Evil 4, the beta?
Mobius knows you've been following us.
yes, and to PT as well. I wanted to stop right here at like the 31-second point. It's kind of a little bit, actually a little bit past here, but when she says that they didn't want him to, and that being Kidman, you notice how there are like these two cameras kind of pointing at Sebastian, almost as if he's being like watched and followed.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I forgot to mention before earlier recording crashed is that, from my understanding, in notes for the original game, he had mentioned that he was constantly being followed whenever he was trying to look for information as to what happened to his disappeared wife or his missing wife.
So Mobius was on him 24/7 back then.
Yeah, 3 years ago. Yeah.
Interesting.
The smoke in the background too also indicates whenever the head of Mobius shows up, is surrounded by smoke. That same smoke that's behind Sebastian and kind of consumes him later.
It's a big vapor, I guess. Big time vapor.
One thing that I actually do like though as well is that in basically in game time, the amount of time we were waiting for the sequel is the same amount of time it is past, at least in game lore. So it's been 3 years since the original release. It's actually been 3 years in the Evil Within's time. So
that's pretty
a lot
cool.
of a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of things are kind of reminiscent to Resident Evil, and a lot of things could have changed over that time.
Yeah.
Knows you've been following us. And they've been watching you for a long time.
That's Kid Man.
You trained
Yeah, Julie.
Kid man.
The betrayer.
and in
A
return,
little Harry Potter thing on her hand.
So what is that, like a 7?
So if you've played the DLC, you know she gets like this weird like symbol on her hand.
Why does she get that? Does it like ever explain why she gets that, or like
I
what it
don't
means?
think it is.
Nice.
I didn't really play the DLC too extensively. I've played it like once, but I just never bothered to really go back to it as much as the main game. I just know that she ends up getting that at one point, and I believe that ends up hurting her at some points as well.
It's after she kills the head of Mobius, or well, she not kills him, but after she, well, at least when she kills him in STEM, he's still alive, but like after she kills him, she gets that mark.
Right.
It's the same mark that he had on his the hand things that he attacked you with in the final boss fight. I just don't know what the hell it means. I'm guessing that means that she's cursed, maybe, or she's possibly. I'm not sure.
Could be a mark of Mobius sort of thing going on there, considering all the symbolism and everything that's led to that point.
You know, that's
I
actually... Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I also find it odd because as far as I know, most of what happens in STEM is like shouldn't. It all takes place in your subconscious, so I don't know why it would have affected her body that way, or like she would have gotten that cut.
That which is a good question, because even in the main game we see Leslie, which is really Ruvik, you know, disappear in the real world as if he was still in STEM. So perhaps some of the things that happen in STEM let you unlock like some sort of how should I put this?
Bleeding effect, maybe?
Yeah, kind of like a bleeding effect, maybe like a psychological ability or of sort, like unlocking potential power that you wouldn't have been able to unlock unless if you went through STEM, which could potentially play into what happens post the Evil Within 2 with DLC, or just even going through the main game. You might have to go back into the real world, and a lot of this crazy shit ends up happening in the real world.
In the first game, none of it really happened in the real world. Most of it just transpired in STEM.
I also kind of want to go back to what you said, Ren, but with the whole like Mobius symbol thing, because even like the title font for the T in the V, it's kind of like this half T, and it's more like a needle, and even the Mobius logo has like this sort of needle going through like some stars, so it kind of is reminiscent to that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of heavy involvement with Mobius, and this could be one of those things. I mean, maybe this could even represent that T, considering that it's on her hand and the way it looks. It's a little jagged, and it looks like a 7, but it could
I was
be
gonna
maybe a
say
T.
it looks more like a 7 than a T.
Well, it could be maybe something like that. Some Mobius thing transpiring that gave her that branding.
So yeah, like some kind of symbolism, even though it doesn't look exactly like that sort of like needle-looking T. It's close to it to where it symbolizes that.
Yeah, with symbolism, I mean, you never know. It could be basically anything regarding things to that.
Mhm. The other thing though too is that I know she mentions that Sebastian needs to work with Mobius, and I think she says that in a moment in this trailer, but to help save his daughter, which was presumed dead 3 years ago, and now we're being told that she was actually kept alive, and her death was staged. But that's going to be talked about in just a moment.
Long before we met, you lost your daughter, Lily. She's still alive. This is your chance to save her. To get back what you lost. Lily needs you. You're gonna need to go back into STEM. Again.
So, really quick here, I just wanted to point out that we should probably keep in mind this whole like this theme here of like this white kind of goo or whatever, because I'm thinking it might be paint, but I'll get more into that in a moment. And at this point, this is him just kind of reliving what had happened to his daughter, not really knowing what, or not necessarily not knowing what, but just kind of reliving the thought of not being able to save his daughter.
Yeah.
Symbiote.
Do you think that paint is going to be like an aspect of gameplay, or it's going to show up in the game?
Probably so.
Partially, and like I said, I will get into it in just a moment. So here, I think a lot of people missed out on this portion, maybe not, and I'm just smoking some sort of crack, but it says appreciate the art, and it's painted in red or in blood, which is interesting because that might hint at a particular character. There was a character that was talked about a little bit by Bethesda named Stefano, and he's supposed to be one of a few killers apparently, and that particular character is really into making his murder really like artsy or whatever, and he appreciates like art. So that could tie into that, and also just the potential of paint and art.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's probably what it is. Yeah.
And this is just some Ruvik shit, just to point that out, because I mean, he was doing this shit with a pair of scissors in the first game. But this is actually Stefano, because he there's an image. I pretty sure I left it in the chat if you scroll up, but he has like a big ass knife, or like a weird jagged looking knife that he stabs people with.
Okay, so before actually pause
Yeah.
it, Dom. Before you continue, I played Evil Within recently, and there is a whole host of serial killers like in the town. So I'm thinking maybe you could be right on this, that they could introduce more of the killers from Crimson City into this sequel.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we can talk a little bit about that too. They mentioned that there's a whole series of mysterious murders going around the Elk River village, and they can't seem to figure out who it is. I'll actually just post this image right here again.
That's actually a dark room too. That red light. I think that's a dark room, including that
Yeah.
little umbrella thingy.
Hold on, let me see if I can pull up the image. But I do think that they will kind of delve into the possibility of, oh, there it is. So in the chat, I don't know if you can pull this up, but this is Stefano, and you can notice, like, even on like his hands, he's wearing gloves, you know, and they had mentioned in the first game that the Elk River serial killer, or serial killers, depending on how many there are, they've never been caught. So it would make sense for, you know, someone who would have committed those crimes to just always wear gloves and you know, be very
Methodical about
keen
their
on that.
approach.
Yeah. And just the other thing too, you know, it's like, because this particular character is really into art, it kind of makes sense why they would have like this whole photo set kind of room here in the background, which we'll see in a little bit more detail in a moment.
There's a camera in this picture too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a camera in the picture you posted as well.
Oh, that is the camera woman monster thing, which apparently also helps him commit the murders in STEM.
No, yeah, those the cherry blossom things.
Yeah, and you'll kind of see it. It's hard to tell. There's another image out there, but it when this like soldier or SWAT team member is like bleeding out, he's also kind of bleeding out like flower petals as well. It's hard to tell if they're like cherry blossom petals or like rose petals or whatever, but it is there. One other thing that I wanted to point out, and this might also tie into gameplay, is that Sebastian is using his revolver from the first game. But later on, you'll see him use a Colt 45, which is a semi-automatic pistol. It's not a revolver like that. And on the cover for the game, he's actually holding an M9, which I don't know if this will tie into gameplay by any means, but this could be hinting at potential upgrade systems or multiple weapons to purchase if you're playing the game, kind of like Resident Evil 4, where you can unlock different weapons and upgrade those weapons as you progress through the game.
Yeah.
It's a little fun fact about the music. It's Damon Albarn from Gorillaz.
Yeah. So right here, when you see this pendulum thing, this little pendant here, right next to the crow, it is of the symbol of the Colt from the first game. I'm thinking that they might have a bigger role in this game. What that role might be is beyond me, but I'd like to know what some of you all think of that.
I don't actually remember much about that from the first game.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe it could be like typical stuff. They're trying to stop Sebastian from completing his objective because it has something to do with Mobius interfering with it. It could always be something like that where Mobius pretty much ruined these guys' lives and they're trying to get some payback.
Do you think that, because I remember for the first game, Ruvik absolutely hated the church and the cult that his family was really involved with.
Mhm.
Do you think that maybe, we have Mobius, we have this cult, and we have like, obviously we don't know if Ruvik is in this game or not, but maybe some influences of him still kind of remain. Do you think that maybe they're all kind of just three different sort of like factions fighting one another over some sort of, control over STEM, or just absolute murder and chaos and just um, visceral sort of like emotions towards each other and whatnot, I guess?
Yeah, they might have an agenda to use them as well, maybe to further their own personal needs. Maybe they are disillusioned and they want to be able to use them to be able to get in and try to have a better life. It could be a ton of things that we just don't know about that the cult might want to destroy Mobius for.
From the main game too, wasn't it mainly like Jimenez and the and Mobius that were involved with the creation of STEM, or was that was that only Mobius?
I
that
think
was
Ruvik started it, right?
Ruvik.
Yeah.
Ruvik started
Okay,
it.
yeah, Ruvik.
He was the sole creator of it all. But Mobius, and Jimenez in particular betrayed Ruvik, and used Ruvik's brain as at least the first known STEM host brain was with Ruvik's brain, which is why he really wanted to get out and use Leslie as, so that way they can like mind swap and get into all this mind fuckery. But yeah, it all started with Ruvik. So I'll continue playing this trailer. So what's interesting about this is that it's completely empty here. I'm thinking this is like one of the cult like leaders or priestesses or whatever, right? And then you got Sebastian's daughter, but both of them are just completely black, as if they were just painted black or whatever. They're just charred black. They don't have any sort of like noticeable like features or whatever that stand out. They're just black. Right. And even the forest kind of just looks like it's completely black as well, with the exception of the lighting.
Maybe it could be a sort of negative effect on STEM.
Yeah. Kind of like a camera negative reel.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I never thought of that either.
This might be like a boss fight too.
And then we have all of these people spawn in all of a sudden. And one thing I wanted to pause here because I don't know if you noticed this, but once the fire pops up, you can see like this noticeable like sort of scar on this guy's face, on his left cheek.
Yeah.
I don't know if that might be just because of like something happening, or if that was like just a intentional design, or maybe he was like burnt, kind of like Ruvik, and that's just kind of like a burn scar or something like that. Right. But it is something that is you get a quick glimpse of, and then it just kind of you don't really get a good look at it.
I'm getting like a Silent Hill 1 vibe with the church and fire.
Mm.
It's like they're using her as a sacrifice or something.
Maybe they were black because they got burnt.
Potentially. That's also a good point. Now, I wanted to point out this scene in particular because and just the whole idea of it being paint as well as that you know, in the first game we had the barbed wire theme for a lot of the enemies, and you know, on the cover art, you know, Sebastian's covered in, or at least his face is covered in barbed wire. It's like wrapped in barbed wire. There's all that stuff coming out of his mouth, his forehead and whatnot. So I think with this game, and I think you can even see it too, like some of the enemies are kind of covered in like white blotches of like whatever this goo is, whether it be paint or whatever it is. So I think that's just kind of a general theme for the enemy design.
I think it's
Probably.
more of like the white stuff is more like the water in the stem, and whatever it's pulling it back into the stem world. So if you see shit swimming about, it's just the enemies that are lurking inside the stem system.
Yeah, I was
you'll
gonna say
eventually
that too.
encounter.
I was gonna say that too. It looks like stem fluid on the enemies, so it seems like, of course, since Sebastian is in stem, he's covered in it. So it seems like one of the logical things that's going on here.
Right.
I don't know if you guys noticed this too, but there's also like this black goo mixed in. And I know you had mentioned, Reapers, that it could be just a symbolism for like a lot of these enemies being like charred or burnt.
Chaos, I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Chaos? I'm sorry.
No, I said that.
And
Oh.
that's so cool.
This I hope I can get the exact frame on this. Nope. This enemy right here, you can like kind of barely make him out. I'm gonna try to play that
Go
again.
back and then, yeah.
This guy right here was actually a cut concept for the original game. There was a lot of cut enemies and whatnot, scrapped enemies and ideas for the first game, and this was one of them. I know that they did take some cut concepts with the DLC and re-implemented them, so it's making me wonder what else they could take. I'm hoping that they might take this one enemy in particular that was supposed to be like this beekeeper of sorts, and would like send out like bees after you, but would also like potentially like stab you with like this knife of sorts.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In the original art book, did that enemy in particular right there on the screen, did he have the flamethrower, or that's new?
I believe he had some sort of gas tank of sorts, because he did have this like gas mask that he was wearing. The one thing that's actually interesting, and it's kind of hard to tell with the way that we have this paused, but he has like this weird kind of rod here. But in the original concept art, it was more like the needles that, if you remember in the Evil Within, you have to like stick in like these needles into like these heads for the brains or whatever to solve this puzzle to unlock this giant gate in the Victoriano estate. He was supposed to have like this needle-like lance of sorts that he was supposed to attack you with, but they seem to have changed that to like just this regular rod with like a red end on it.
It's like one of those little long, those little blade things that you do for like lobotomies. That like put the hammer down into,
Yeah. That's what he originally was supposed to have, and they seem to have changed that. But you know, I'm just glad to see that they brought back something that was cut from concept. One thing that is interesting here too, can I get this frame? No, I can't. So in if I can get this frame to pop up, this enemy right here, and this is something that they did too in the DLC, was that a lot of the enemies were kind of glowing like either yellow, and then once you got caught in the DLC, they would like turn red. This enemy right here seems to have like kind of like a split face, almost kind of going back to some of the enemies that had the split personality disorder and whatnot, but also kind of going back to that DLC where if you get caught, they'll turn red and aggro and whatnot, kind of giving a nice little touch to that.
Yeah. So you think maybe that means the game might have stealth sections or a stealth mechanic?
Oh, of course. I think it's still gonna have
Well,
stealth.
actually, no, that's right. The first game did. I mean, there were stealth. You could stealth it, but it was optional. You didn't have to. Do you think maybe in this one there are sections where you might either really want to or need to like stealth through a
This is the greatest part about this game, is that Bethesda has confirmed that for this game, if you want to play the game like the original and just, run and gun everything, you can. If you want to stealth everything like the DLC kind of forced you to, you can do that. You have full player choice in this game. So if you prefer to stealth, you can do that. If you prefer to take on everything and do it with all the limited ammo that you have, you can do that. This game also is apparently supposed to feature a lot of exploration, which is something that was also cut from concepts.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense because it seems like there's a city setting now, so obviously it's going to be a lot bigger than the original.
Wait a minute though. Wasn't this seems like more like it's set in like a small town or something almost, because you see more forest and like a forest setting, and then there's some like kind of, it looks more like it's just a town than a city.
Well, when the cops are like
seen.
running around, you definitely see like a lot more urban street environments. Which
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
they were in the original, but they
in
weren't
the first
prominent.
game it had that, but I mean it wasn't. It was pretty linear, so I don't know. But
It could be a bit more open. I would like that.
it looks that way. I mean, I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, it looks more like you're in a town or like a small town setting than it does like a city. But maybe not. I don't know.
Well,
But from what I've seen,
I was thinking maybe because this is Sebastian's own personal stem that is referencing Crimson City,
maybe.
it could be a possibility.
I know that they said that this place is called Union. I read an article on this. I didn't read too much into it, so I'll have to go refer to that later. But Union is apparently supposed to be just kind of like a culmination of a lot of different places, based on Lily, Sebastian's daughter's own personal imagination.
So they're doing the Ruvik thing where it's like, since he's in STEM, he's still experiencing other people's pain. Okay, that's interesting.
So I think that's going to be interesting because I think that because this could also like impact what Sebastian is going to go through in the sense that he might he goes through the small town first, right? But then the next minute, you might go through a place that, and I think there is a frame of that, something that looks like the Beacon Mental Hospital, or something that looks like the catacomb from the cult in the Cedar Church. There was also an area that kind of looked like the sewer area that was later in the game, although this looks a lot more reminiscent to what was cut out of the original game as far as the location is concerned. Right here, actually, this little like it could be a sewer area, or it could be like a catacomb dungeon area. It's really hard to tell because this portion of the trailer comes up for a very brief second. And what's interesting is that the enemy that's chasing him actually blows up and kind of launches him forward a little bit. And there we get a better glimpse of that enemy. It does kind of look like they replaced that rod with an actual flamethrower, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was saying, because he has like a rod in the original art.
Yeah, so I wonder why they went with that design choice, but
probably symbolism, I assume, because Lily died like supposedly in a fire.
I do like the change though, even though it's not what the original concept brings. It is a return to that concept, but also some new form of it to an extent, like a new variation.
Yeah.
And here you can kind of get a better look at like this white goo on this enemy. It's just completely covered in it. There's another enemy kind of like, it looks like it's in the background, kind of like its flesh is ripped up, but some white goo is kind of covering it.
And both the enemies actually look like their flesh is been ripped. Their flesh has been ripped off.
Mm.
Oh, that's sister.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's.
It's really short.
Right here, you can barely get a glimpse of her, but
Laura?
Laura from the original is back.
Throwback.
And if I'm not mistaken, some of the experiences that Sebastian had from the first game will sort of impact this game. So I think that's kind of part of the reason why he's even seeing Laura, is because he's traumatized by what he's gone through in the first game.
Oh, so we'll see Boxhead too?
That would be cool.
Potentially.
That would be cool.
Yes. Yeah, the Keeper seeing him would be interesting because I don't know, like in the first game, believe it or not, the concept artist actually did not like the fact that it was a more psychological enemy that could just respawn at any point in time. She wanted it to be more of a living kind of enemy, and maybe that some characteristics of these monsters, could change in this game, for all we know. One thing, it's kind of hard to tell, but like, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of these haunted actually, in the first game they had white glowing eyes. In this game they have red glowing eyes, and I don't know why that sort of changed, but that might also tie to whoever the host brain is.
Yeah.
And this shot, I don't know if this is supposed to be like revisiting Beacon or if this is a completely new like mental hospital or whatever, but this looks a lot like Beacon Mental Hospital.
Oh yeah.
Oh god.
I was gonna say, I wonder if the hospital's still gonna be like your safe area, your little safe area and whatnot.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I know, I don't know if Brandon's here, but we kind of talked in private about the potential of maybe if they bring a lot of these concepts back, that maybe Laura could be a saleswoman like originally intended. So kind of like, okay, she's a monster at one point, but at other points she helps you.
Right.
I don't think you see Laura other than as a monster and in that flashback from the original game, don't you?
No,
Okay.
you don't.
So I think what could happen is if she does come back as a saleswoman, she could probably take the role of the original nurse that sort of helps you out by putting you in that safe room, asking you if you're okay. Maybe she could show up, but she's still like a monster in STEM after you go outside the safe room. So that could be an interesting dynamic, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to speculate as well that like maybe there is some possibility that some of the cult members, because the Victoriano family was very involved with the cult and whatnot and the church, that maybe they knew Ruvik's sister well, and perhaps they have good memories of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were gonna say something, Chaos?
No, I mean I pretty much said everything I wanted to.
Okay. And then right about here,
Classic Sebastian.
yeah, Brandon had mentioned that this could have been Joseph.
Right.
I'm thinking this might be Sebastian because it really looks like Sebastian.
No, that's Sebastian. I mean, I'm pretty sure it is.
But one thing that's really interesting is that he's sitting in a chair on top of a pool of blood, and this is just kind of a little jump scare to Laura.
Maybe it could be like symbolism for how this could have been the end of his journey in the first game.
Mhm. I'm thinking it could also be possibly just a physical manifestation of Sebastian's like trauma and just like post-traumatic stress of all the experiences he had in the first game.
You think it could be an enemy?
Possibly. Like
Interesting.
it can manifest itself into an enemy.
Sebastian.
Yeah. Dark Sebastian.
But at this point, it's not like it pretty much ends with him trying to reach out and getting pulled into the blood. And I don't know if James is here, but we should probably get to the second video if he's alive. James?
He's somewhat sleeping. Oh, wait, never mind.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Fooled you.
So this starts off a lot like the other trailer. That woman right here, right about you get a small glimpse of her like right about at that point or whatever. It's kind of hard to pause on watch together right here, but you will see a better look of her face later on in the trailer as well.
All right.
And then this is just kind of going into the whole like art thing again, because it kind of looks like an art gallery, and there's like kind of like this weird like mannequin sort of statue with a balance. One thing I just noticed too is that there's like a white figure on the scale, and there's a little black figurine on there as well.
Light and dark, maybe.
Like negative and positive, like
Yeah.
camera-wise. There's a bunch of paintings in the back with eyeballs and shit.
Yeah. Also, I don't know about you guys, but that just kind of this whole shot just kind of reminds me of the original Resident Evil with some of the halls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
fucking creepy.
right here, this kind of confused me, and this is why I speculated that we might be getting more than one sort of like weapon for all the different categories. Because with the first trailer, we saw him.
Does
hold that-
Sebastian have a machete?
Yeah, I don't know if that's.
Oh
his
yeah, good eye there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe they might work on like giving him more melee weapons, giving him more weapons to kind of work with, instead of just being like, okay, there's your handgun, that's what you're going to be stuck with for the entire game.
Yeah.
So they might just delve into like a whole upgrade system like Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like gun, loud, machete, quiet kills.
Yeah. Now, right here, I want to pause because you can see that this is a like a different cult symbol.
Yeah.
Which is and they have like some kind of sacrifice there on the table there as well. So I'm wondering if there's maybe different factions of the cult, or just different like subsections within the cult, even though they're all like one big organization.
Right.
There's also just kind of like that Mobius needle as well. So perhaps I don't know, maybe some of them even work with Mobius.
Probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. God damn. Yeah, I haven't seen this trailer yet, so this is all new.
You can see the cult symbol again, but this one's even a little bit more different, where it's kind of got this sort of like checkered line design going through it.
Right.
What the fuck was that?
It's a giant.
You want to
Yeah.
pull back to
Oh,
that?
so the paint is like gonna be a thing. It looks like in terms of like things can teleport through it, I guess.
Did you want to talk about this little portion here?
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what that is on the left over there. Like,
Organic tree, maybe?
yeah.
Some sort of Godzilla.
It's
beast.
fucking creepy.
There's
though.
another one that looks like farther off on the right. I think that's
Yeah, it like falls down,
yeah.
causing like this debris, and it looks like Sebastian kind of teleported there. That's why that enemy kind of like smacked him for a second.
Yeah.
And then this whole like paint teleportation thing.
Oh.
So I'm thinking
Oh.
this might be a whole new like a whole new thing, not just exclusive to this enemy type, but maybe even for some of the lesser enemies where
I
they
think
can use...
that's the thing from the beginning, isn't it? It looks like the same. It looks like it has the same face.
I don't think so, because that one was
Ah.
actually like really cloaked, and this one was using the gas to keep itself invisible when it was dark.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, it looks like So you think these are going to be like an invisible enemy? It's going to kind of conceal itself and try to kill you.
Yeah, within gas, and I'm thinking maybe they
You have
could
to shine a light on it to reveal it.
Yeah, and they kind of had that mechanic in the DLC, if I'm not mistaken, for the first game.
Yeah, something like
At least with the
they had
walls.
one invisible enemy. That was it. Like that one part was one invisible enemy, but it didn't really have I don't the gimmick to that was you had to shoot it in order to reveal it, I think. Or well, not shoot it, but you had to kind of watch where it walked, and that's how I knew where it was. But yeah, I mean with this it just looks like you shine a flashlight on it.
What do you think of this, Ren and Reapers?
Well, it has interesting potential to be a great enemy from the looks of it. I mean, just look at that fucking thing. the design alone of it looks very like
Honestly, like
grotesque.
the monster designs better in this so far than the first game. I think there's a lot more variety, at least with the enemy types.
Yeah, it seems like they just took it up a level with how grotesque the monsters and gore really looks. Because in the first one,
horror, honestly,
yeah,
it reminds me of that.
I feel like this symbolizes something we don't know yet. I feel like that's something that's going to be a symbol for something.
probably.
I get the feeling this thing is going to be like in the first enemy we saw, the fast moving one. It probably, I get the impression this will also be like a really quick enemy. Maybe not, but
Yeah.
I give this enemy an out of 10.
Yeah, the way it screams and like how it looks is fucking creepy. I mean, I like that they're at least trying to do some more, just making the enemies look even more grotesque than the original.
I feel like it's going to be one of those enemies, kind of like in Dead Space, where they had the ones that would poison the air, and you had to find it and kill it so you can breathe.
Oh yeah, you mean the small gas babies that if you didn't kill them and purify the area, you would die.
Yep.
They had that in Neo as well, where you had to kill the centipede pieces or whatever in
Right.
order to make the mines breathable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to pause on this portion here as well. I know, Ren, you had recently replayed the game, and I don't know if you remember the final boss.
He reminds me a little bit of the final boss and the what was it? The giant thing in the parking lot.
It's the amalgam.
The amalgam, yeah.
And the amalgam basically it goes through different stages throughout the game, and the final boss is its final form. And I'm thinking that this might be like a new variation in the sense that this is going to be everything that you face up in this game, right? And then some, because in the first game it was more of, hey, this is everything you fought, and then at the very end you'll see Ruvik and all the different like people that were ever connected to STEM all put into one. So this is just kind of like reiterating that whole thing that anytime there is a STEM and anytime you get closer to the host brain and getting close to like killing everything that has ever been in STEM, this thing just kind of appears as like kind of like a final like chance of like ever trying to get out. Basically.
Also, obvious weak point.
Oh yeah, with the red eyes. There is another enemy that comes up that's kind of like the RE3 insect in a way that has that, but they have like this huge fucking mouth. But I'll try to stop at that frame as best as I possibly can.
There you go.
Yeah, like right there. It's kind of hard to get a good look at that.
One, that's pretty good. Well,
Oh well, yeah. Anyway, you get that whole thing like jumping at your face, and it's got like this huge fucking mouth, but they also have those like red eyes. So I think that the whole thing is that as well as that, a lot of these enemies are just going to be a lot more aggressive. So maybe that's why they went with that sort of color palette as well for the eyes.
Oh, that's the gas enemy again they showed.
So hold on, I want to point to this here. They kind of rehashed this whole thing from The Evil Within 1, where you run into the cop that you first meet in the game or whatever.
yeah.
But it more so just like violent, and it kind of looks like you're just looking at yourself being torn apart. It's hard to tell whose arm that is.
Yeah.
But it really looks very gory, and I'm glad that they ramped up the gore in this game. And oops, trying to get a good look at that face, because you do get a good look at that face. It's kind of hard to tell here, but she like basically comes up to you and just says, "No, fuck your couch. You're dead." So it's like I'm wondering how grotesque the murder is going to be here, but I'm thinking maybe the key to this enemy is to stealth it, because they did say stealth is optional, but maybe for some enemies like this, it might be mandatory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's what I was
boss
thinking.
fights, maybe. I mean, it would be interesting if they had optional stealth moments, but for the first one, it seems pretty much run and gun with most bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This kind of looks fucked up too. It's hard to tell what it is, but it looks like it's wrapped in wires with like other bodies, and then a giant fucking saw.
Yeah, it's like a marionette or something like
It
a.
was like something that was like stitched up, like Frankenstein type shit.
Yeah, there's like lines on the body.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like
Looks like a-
cables. Like that's what it looks like.
Maybe barbed wire could be a possibility.
Oh, so like again?
Yeah, like again, like the first game.
You it's so hard to see in this part, but this right here, this whole like art thing again, and I'm thinking that the whole idea of like
they're in. It looks like they're in like a glass case or something like that. Like a. Yeah, I mean that might be to explain the lines. I mean, I think some of them are strings that is holding up one of the that bloody thing.
Oh yeah, I see them now. Yeah, it looks like a
Yeah.
puppet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
think what it
marionettes.
is that the strings are attached to the hand of that thing that's holding it up like on the strings. I can't really make it out too well, but it looks like that might be what it is. Because if you notice, the strings are only coming down where the hand is, or like around its hand.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of the Bioshock level with Sander Cohen with his little painted up dead bodies that he like made into different poses and whatnot around the stage.
Oh, you're not talking about where he had like the clay doll. What was it? The
Yes.
clay dolls or whatever.
Yeah, he clayed up people and then he like posed them in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like that. It kind of reminds me of that.
This could also go back to that theory of, hey, we got this murderer that we know about, this killer who's really into this artistic stuff, right? So he likes to kill people in a very, what he considers to be like artistic.
Right.
What do you think, Ren?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much artistic murdering from the way it looks. They're just using the marionettes as a symbol to show this. And the glass case as well, because it seems like that fits into the art motif. You want to protect it at all costs. So yeah.
And And this thing has multiple fucking faces.
I see that. Yeah.
That's great. I wanted to
Yeah.
pause on this because I'm thinking this could also just kind of line up to some of the more grotesque stuff where it's like I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of these other like crazy looking enemies seem to be like multi-limbed, but this one's a little bit different in the sense that it has like 4 heads, and this is, I think, the most heads that anything has ever had in the Evil Within before.
Mhm.
So I wonder if, like, if you pop one off, if that just, you know, means that you've gotten a critical sort of damage off of it, but it's not down and out. You'd have to take out all 4 heads at once.
Yeah.
Probably.
That reminds me of Cerberus vibes
Mhm.
from DMC.
So this is actually going to be Sebastian's way to communicate with Kidman while he's in STEM. It's supposed to be like this kind of codec radio thing. How it works, we don't really know, but this is apparently just his way to connect to the real world.
Okay.
Sebastian, are you there?
Lily?
Fuck is that?
It's coming towards him too. You see that?
Yeah, it's I like to dub this guy
Burn victim.
the fireman, because you can kind of make out his face. It's kind of hard because it's really oversaturated with the fire. But this guy is just completely, you know, scorched and burnt. And I think there's also kind of like this tentacle sort of thing that moves up as he chokes him.
Yeah.
So how this enemy is going to work is interesting, but you know, where some of these other enemies in the previous games, or in the previous game, sorry, like Laura, who were affected by fire, maybe this enemy is not affected by fire and uses fire to its advantage.
I wonder what you would use it, against it in that case.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe
Uh,
water? Who knows?
Well, they did have the nitrogen bolts in the previous game.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was thinking
right.
of that as well, or maybe like water, put him out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they could also use, if not the explosive bolts, maybe the electric bolts. Unless if they decide to make like new bolts, because they did have, I think it was like up to 5 different bolts, but also 2 DLC bolts. One of them that kind of already did something that the harpoon bolts did, and the
Yeah.
other was just kind of a useless, hey, go chase this gas thing that you're probably never going to chase bolt.
So distraction.
Yeah, there was it was like a poisonous gas bolt, but it was one of the most useless DLC bolts in the game. It was only available for pre-order, but maybe they could bring that back and revise it and make it more useful. Maybe it could explode on impact to something like this.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure which game it was. I think it was Dead Rising, but yeah, you can lure zombies to like a certain like item and it will explode as soon as like they gather around it, so it could be useful in that regard.
Yeah.
And at that point, that is practically it. Aside from that, it just tells you to pre-order the game. But there
Fucking
was,
do it.
yeah, do it, really do it. But there was a lot, and I've watched both those trailers back to back a lot, and I've tried to gather as much information as possible. But and I feel like there's still stuff that I'm missing. I don't know about you guys, but that's just how I personally feel.
Well, there's more to come. Tokyo Game Show, obviously, I'm pretty positive this game is going to be there, so that's going to be a sight to see before launch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we have up until October, and October is not too far away.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that all said, I think we've pretty much got all of our thoughts out of the way. I mean, unless if Brandon wants to give any last minute thoughts to anything that he might have missed out on. I don't know if he's here or not.
You guys pretty much covered it.
All right. So I know these guys will be talking about Wolfenstein: The New Colossus and the trailer that was out for that game soon. I don't know when. These guys will take care of it in the near future. I don't know, Ren, do you want to take talking points for this one?
Well, I said we might do the Wolfenstein trailer, but we also might do episodic discussion. I'm going to download the New Order because I never played it, but I do have it on my PC. Same with Old Blood. So I definitely want to see how that goes because I was also interested in that trailer and how the characters sort of interacted from the previous games. But once I take care of that, we'll definitely do a discussion on it, no problem as well.
Alrighty.
Yeah, they're both good games. So.
So I guess with that said, we should probably do intros.
Outros.
Intros, yeah. I'm tired. It was a long day. Outros. You can find me over on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch as biodevil_Dom. Ren, where can we find you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at RentOperative_. You can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. The only thing that I will be uploading so far tonight is my Sony E3 review for 2017. I also will be doing a few one-on-ones here or there because Phil Spencer, he's been saying some stupid shit, so got to get on that.
Yeah, we just we did one recently, me and Chaos, and that was fun. We kind of diverged a little bit, but we got into mostly just some topics that were in relation to that.
Yeah.
But again, it was fun. It's gonna be fun seeing how all these other ones turn out. Reapers, where can we find you, sir?
Find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube at Reapers240.
Alrighty. Chaos, where can we find you?
You can find me on both YouTube and Twitter at Captain Chaos.
And then James, where can we find you? Because you kind of helped out too.
You can find me on Twitter at DeathHunterJames.
And lastly, Mr. Brandon.
Nothing special.
That's some pimp music right there.
he wanted us to know that he's about to smoke some weed and ignite the fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, but that was fun. Hopefully we can do more of these soon. Like I said, maybe Wolfenstein: The New Order from these guys.
Yep,
Or, I'm sorry,
I
the
think
New Colossus. Sorry,
the
I
New
said
Colossus.
Order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that will be fun because they have some crazy weapons in that trailer that is pretty amazing.
They seem to have ramped up the gore in both this game and Wolfenstein, so it's gonna
Maybe
be
that was the
interesting.
motto. Yeah, ramp up the gore, make the fucking legs and limbs fly off.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty graphic in the first game, but yeah, the second one definitely looks like it's taking things to a new level in terms of how graphic it is.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so that was fun. Hope you all come and see this shit again soon. Bye.
See you later.
See ya.
Yeah.